Hi everyone, and welcome back to the digital stage at Technology, AI and Cyber Live. Next up, it is my pleasure to introduce Lauren Knausenberger, the Chief Information Officer of the US Department of Air Force, with a presentation on digital transformation. So please offer her your full attention, and I will see you after the presentation for a short Q&A.
All right. Good afternoon to everyone over there in the UK, and of course, good morning to the folks here in the US. I am broadcasting today from home in Washington D.C. I guess the beauty of still being a little bit sequestered a few days a week during COVID. But it's great to chat with you today. It looks like you have an incredible lineup of speakers hitting all sorts of topics of interest. So it's been wonderful hearing what some of them have to say. And look forward to chatting through a little bit of what has been our U.S. Air Force journey. And just to give you some context, really the larger the organization, the harder that I hear from colleagues that it is to transform. And in the U.S. Air Force, we're about 750,000 people strong, and of course include the newly formed Space Force. So a huge organization, and of course also well known as one of the largest bureaucracies in the world. So oftentimes when people hear about our successes and our digital transformation, they think to themselves, oh my goodness, if the largest bureaucracy in the world can do it, so can I. And so I hope that we're able to give you a couple of tidbits today. I think some of the technologists in the audience will probably get a kick out of some of these things too, because oftentimes the hard part of a digital transformation, it's not the technical pieces. Those are often, quite foundational things. It tends to be, of course, the culture side and the people side and the things that you do in a repeated way. But we'll jump on in. So first, we are now a few years into our digital transformation, and I would say that we're very much at an inflection point. And I'll say that on the left side, we have the Bobs. They're from the movie Office Space. If you haven't seen that, you should go out and see it. It has Jennifer Aniston from Friends. Great 1990s cult classic about everything that you should not do in digital transformation. But these are the consultants coming in and asking everyone, what exactly do you do here? And the classic boss always asking for the TPS report that really adds no value to what they're doing within the company, but just wastes everyone's time. So within a bureaucracy, I think a lot of folks really see this movie as speaking a lot of truth. And cutting through some of those bureaucratic things and constantly asking, am I spending my time on the things that are going to drive the highest value for my mission? Is my organization spending time on the things that will drive the highest value for my mission? And so as we look at the inflection point that we're at currently, we can either go with the status quo, we can keep doing our TPS reports, or we can be a little bit more like Star Trek. We can be the Enterprise. We can dive in and have the tools that we need to do our jobs every day. We actually do have a holodeck project within the Air Force right now, so that's a fun one, as well as some AI assistance. But the Space Force, of course, we're not yet fighting anything like the Klingons, but maybe that'll come with time. But the idea is to be ready for anything that hits us, to boldly go where no one has gone before. And along those lines, these are some of the things that I'm looking at from the CIO realm that will continue to push us forward in our digital transformation. One is you have to have a rock solid digital foundation. And for the folks that are joining me from the government side, I will share that whatever government you are in, anywhere in the world that I have met with, we all have very similar challenges with cutting through things. And we all have folks that, for instance, will say, yes, we're going to dive into AI. AI will solve all of our problems. And folks forget about all the many things that happen underneath those types of outcomes that drive to doing things at scale and being able to do those same things, for instance, with our partners, the Royal Air Force in the UK being a huge one of our partners. And also your commercial partners, the large industrial base that each country and government have. And so ensuring that there is that rock solid digital foundation that you are connecting at high speeds, that you have the cloud and edge-based services that you need to run those algorithms, that you're able to really push forward at speed with DevSecOps and deliver really secure functionality at mission speed. And that's something that resonates across the commercial world and the government world. I think consumers are getting more aware of the security of all the products that they use. Certainly governments have been concerned about that for some time, but you can't sacrifice the speed while you're delivering things securely. And of course, our zero trust framework and data strategy are a huge part of this. Now, something that is relatively newer to understanding within the Department of Defense is that user experience is a really important thing. And the commercial guys in the audience are nodding their heads and like, yes, we've known this for years. Of course, it's a huge important thing. It's a large driver of our market value. But even in the military organizations, understanding what your warfighters need is just really incredibly important. If you have somebody swivel chairing between two different systems, entering data a couple of times, they are not being as effective as they should be. And likewise, if you can't see your network, if you can't see your applications, if you don't see which parts of your investment as a large enterprise are adding value and which ones are not, then you're really missing a lot of opportunity, both to enable the business or mission value of your enterprise, and you're really just not taking care of your people. And so that is something that we've invested pretty heavily in over the past few years, to do things that will drive user experience for our warfighters. And that's whether they are in a warfighting mission or whether they're just doing day-to-day business stuff. We don't want them to be wasting time, and we want them to feel very effective and enabled. Now, enabling digital talent is another huge one. Different companies are better or worse at enabling talent. Now, in the military, we tend to hire people for a career. And so it's very important that we are able to grow talent. Companies, of course, you can hire talent in, especially at senior levels. It's harder to do that in a military structure. And so we've had to make sure that we can really upskill our workforce. And I'd say we've had some good successes. We have more that we can do, but Digital U is a huge part of that. We have leveled the playing field. It doesn't matter whether we hired you to be a chef or a cyber warrior or a software developer. We want everybody to have access. And likewise, whatever your background is, whatever you look like, wherever you came from, we don't care. We want you to have a really great opportunity to add skills to the digital battle space. And so that's really important to maintain that access. And really, we have at this point been able to democratize access to best-in-class digital education that we purchase through commercial training providers and see what some of those skill sets are so that when we need them, we can pull in that talent. And then finally, we really want to make sure that we are getting rid of the things from the past that are acting like shackles in moving us forward. So creating trade space such that with budgets staying relatively the same, we can still be really effective and move forward. And so part of that is ruthlessly attacking manual process. We still do things pretty manually in a lot of places within our Air Force. We did build up during a Cold War era. And so we're kind of getting out of that industrial mindset in some of the IT side of things. And so getting rid of some of those manual processes that are kind of hiding somewhere off on a base that, just snuck through decades of reform. Every company, every organization has them. We are ruthlessly seeking them out and incentivizing our folks to just say, hey, this is stupid. I don't want to do this manual process anymore. And we've actually had a series of challenges using robotic process automation that allows them to unleash their army of bot minions to go out and take care of those manual tasks for them. And now we're using the data to look at where we need to provide them with new software so that it's not just a matter of automating the process, it's a matter of giving them better software so that they don't have to think about that anymore, so that the data just goes to where it needs to go and is integrated in the way that it needs to be integrated to accomplish what they're trying to do. And then, of course, also every government especially has just really crazy outdated policy. We are no exception, and we are still fighting a lot of those things. And the top things that actually we're pushing right now are making commercial internet more of a default, which sounds really, really simple. During COVID, we've all been working from home, doing our work, but we don't often do it from our bases. But in a zero trust methodology, which is very much where we're headed, you're protecting the data. You're probably also protecting the endpoint, you're encrypting. There are a number of things that you're doing, but there's nothing that precludes you from using a commercial internet connection. And so we're trying to kind of shake some of the old ways of thinking within that policy space. Now, this chart will probably make the tech guys laugh because it's way too simple. But the takeaway here and to the executive audience is that you do have to be able to convey some of the concepts that you're talking about in a simple way, but not too simple. And for most technical topics, you really do have to keep it kind of around the 8th grade level because you don't want anyone in the room whose input you need to be left out. Part of it is, we do need to educate folks and make sure that people have access to learn about things like cloud and data science and, what is a sensor net and how can AI help me? It's really critically important that people take the time to learn those things at the executive level, but you also don't want to alienate people or make them feel silly for asking questions. And so this is one of the charts that I use to just kind of break it down a little bit. And these are really the things that I see other than doing these repeatedly with great processes and culture as kind of the way that we drive forward with our digital transformation. So we need to have digitally savvy folks and continuously be upping our game. The Air Force actually added digital acumen as one of our core skills for the first time last year, which is absolutely exciting and really just shows that that we mean it, that we really want to foster that skill set. Having the right applications to do your job. And that's in the business realm, and it's also in the mission realm, whatever your mission is. Having the tools that you need to do your job, not having maybe 20 different apps that you need to go to on your iPhone, but perhaps an integrated suite of applications that brings your data together in a way that you need to interact with it, that helps enable you to do your job quickly and to get the data that you need to make the decisions that you need to make. And then I have this is an oversimplified tech stack, but it has helped our executive level folks to kind of understand all of the different things that go into making AI real. And so, I think everyone is looking at how do I apply AI? But the first question is, do I have training quality data? Do I have a data fabric to pass that data through? Do I have sufficient compute to run those algorithms? Have I figured out how I am going to run those algorithms in the cloud, but perhaps do my sensing and inferencing at the edge? How am I going to connect in different places? And that's probably less of an issue, if you're kind of working at the coffee shop, working at home. Our workforce works really, really strange places sometimes. And so we have to also be ready to connect via a satellite link or via radio frequency. And so making sure that wherever we are in the world, that we do have connectivity to get to the things that we need, but we can also operate when we don't have connectivity. So that's one place where we're a little bit unique, but anyone who's ever been on an airplane understands the need for disconnected ops. Maybe you don't want to pay the Wi-Fi fee. Maybe your airline just doesn't do streaming really well, when you're in the air. And so having the ability to do the things that you need to on your smartphone while you're not going to have a connection for a few hours is really important. And then, of course, once you pop it back on, you get all of your updates. But all of these things are very important to driving forward for the digital transformation for the Air Force as well as for any other organization. And when you get all of these things right, and when you can get all of these things right at scale, that is when you really have that exponential impact. I think a lot of organizations can do small MVPs and they can even do them repeatedly. But doing it at global scale is very difficult. Doing it across a broad ecosystem is very difficult. And so those are the types of things that we and our partners are working to do better and better every day. Now, this is a couple of things that are existing today that are working pretty well. I mentioned Digital U earlier. Office 365, I know Microsoft is one of your speakers and sponsors. That's been huge. The military before COVID did not understand the need for collaboration tools. The commercial world, of course, has known this forever, but it has been game changing. And once we got a bunch of generals, teams in their hands, everyone's so excited about it, and they want it at other levels of classifications because they just really enjoy the AI-enabled workflows. They like to be able to work at this speed. They can work seamlessly with a remotely distributed workforce, which during COVID, it kind of brings it to a new level with everyone working from their dining room. But we are a remotely distributed workforce anyway. We are all over the world. And so COVID has taught us a lot of lessons through making sure that we did have those collaboration tools and could work remotely anywhere in the world. And through the cultural pieces of some of our folks previously feeling that, if they couldn't see you, you weren't working. We've gotten through that. And I think a lot of companies have gotten through that too. Some have also gone the other way, and some of our teams have too, where they realized, hey, working remotely is great, but we really need that social aspect of the team. And so, every team is different, has different objectives, but I do think that moving forward, that's a really important thing to know where your organization stands and where your team stands and what kind of balance you can strike. Cloud One, I'll chat with you a little bit about that. That is our Air Force cloud solution. And really through that rock solid digital foundation, these are all of the things that we're working right now to make sure that we can continue to drive forward, that we have the devices that we need to get things done. These are very basic things, but in a large military organization, you don't always, historically, folks didn't always think about, hey, it's a warfighter, they need a fancy laptop. They're more focused on other things. But if you give someone a really horrible laptop, they're going to waste so much of their time every day, fighting the laptop, that they're not going to be able to focus on their job. And so really helping folks to see how much IT drives business value and frees up trade space so that you can go back to the stuff that maybe people feel are more important. People want the technology to be there as an enabler, but not spend all day fighting the technology. They want to leverage it to go forward. Now, at the data level, some pretty exciting things happening from a military perspective. In the commercial world, of course, pretty widespread. But our Vault data platform, any airman can go in for free and they can just play with data. They can use Trifacta to wrangle their data. They can use Tableau to visualize their data. We've got Databricks. We've got all sorts of great tools in there where our airmen can go and either learn and experiment, or they can use their real mission data. And we do have that at a couple levels of classification. And then our unified data library it's just literally a data library. We used to all collect our data and hold it tight in silos, and a lot of organizations do this too. But we've now said, look, that data is not your data. It is the department's data. And so everyone has to make sure that their data is discoverable by the rest of the enterprise. If you can post it in the library, people love to have it posted in the library. This, of course, is, it's not all data. It's the data that people are supposed to have access to. And then we're doing more also with Confluent Kafka data feeds. So if, for instance, I have to pull in an FAA radar, someone else can come in and subscribe to that FAA radar. They don't have to collect that same data and almost inevitably be hosting it, taking up compute somewhere else. So we're trying to be more efficient about the way that we collect data and the way we store data. And that also ties into cost and what else we can be doing with those funds and with that compute. Here are just a couple of mission AI vignettes. I actually had the opportunity to fly very recently on the U-2, just absolutely incredible airplane, up flying at 70,000 feet, high enough that you're wearing a spacesuit and can see the curvature of the earth. It's pretty incredible. And that plane has been around since the 50s. It was born in 1955, and it's just such an incredible team working with that airplane that we've had two pretty cool things happen. We ran Kubernetes live on that jet about a year ago, and we were able to push code updates to the airplane in real time while the pilot was flying. That was pretty cool. And then also, if you know the Alpha Mu game software that originally beat the international chess champion and then the Go champion, we used the basis of that game to turn out R2 Mu, and we were able to give R2 Mu control over the sensors on the U2. And that was just absolutely cool, because, we're pretty sensitive about our airplanes sometimes. So running AI on our airplanes, and at least in this case, being able to be pretty public about it was, it was pretty awesome. And a lot of folks, reached out to partner, and we've had some really great things come from that. So really excited to see what that team continues to do. And I think with this audience, probably you're pretty used to using AI to look for differences in cyber activity. Of course, if anyone from the airline industry is here, predictive maintenance on airplanes is huge. I know we had one particular exit door that if the sensor went bad, the exit door was opening in flight, which, it's a really bad safety risk. It also would break the door to the tune of, $1 million a pop. And so we've saved quite a bit of money from being able to predict when that sensor will go bad and making sure that, we don't have our exit doors opening. And then one of my favorite examples, back in 2015, we didn't consistently have the AI built into some of our warning systems, and so we had someone at NORAD kind of watching the airspace around DC. There's something that looked a little bit funny, but he thought, oh, okay, I actually don't think it's anything of note. And the next thing we knew, a gyrocopter was landing on the White House lawn. Now it was a postal worker who was trying to prove a point, but it could have been something else. And so, the general in charge at the time was in front of Congress. How did this happen? All of those things that you never want your boss to be, having to answer to, whether you're at a corporation, having to answer to shareholders, or a government official answering to, whichever body in your government. But that really pushed some quick action. And pretty soon after, working with a variety of commercial companies, just the way that we are able to visualize that space is just so incredible. And kind of the before and after, I mean, you'd have to train for years to be able to tell what you were seeing. And now, just me with a completely untrained eye, I can look and say, wow, that's definitely not something that looks good. So it's pretty cool how far things have come. I mentioned earlier Digital University. I think any company that wants to retain folks and kind of grow people from a more junior level into more senior technical talent, not always have to hire outside, you got to have a program like this. And it's just been so wonderful to level that playing field and give people this access. And folks that, have been passionate, but didn't feel like they, hey, I was hired to do something completely different. I'm a logistics specialist, or I'm a maintenance technician. It's actually pretty amazing what is happening when we are giving just about any skill set access to these types of technology. And actually our maintenance technicians have come up with just some really cool innovations by being enabled. Our personnelists were leading the way with a lot of that robotic process automation I mentioned earlier, just getting after our HR processes. So there's just been some really great leaps forward on this. I promised to share a little bit about Cloud One. So we are a multi-hybrid cloud. We have Amazon and Microsoft and Google, mostly at multiple levels of classification, over 19 million monthly logins, and quite a few applications and systems. And for us, when we say systems, it's a pretty complex, let's call it a complex integrated suite of applications. And so a good amount of activity in the cloud. And just a few years ago, we were not in the cloud at all. And today we have all of our public facing websites in the cloud, more and more things, especially at the unclassified level, moving forward, as well as all of our training environments. And it's working pretty well for us. It has dramatically increased our speed of business. We still get questions about, is the cloud safe, based on things that are happening in the world? And my opinion is, you can never keep your systems completely safe, as long as the cybercrime market outpaces the cybersecurity market by the level that it does. But leveraging cloud architecture, if you're configuring things well, if you are using all of the automation and AI and advanced threat detection that is in place today, and especially if you partner with the cyber researcher community, your ethical hackers, I think there's a lot that you can do to keep yourself safer in the cloud than in more legacy technologies where you have to work a lot harder to protect things sometimes. And so this has been a great journey for us, as it has for most large organizations. Now, Platform One, 49 commits per day for a military organization. Pretty awesome that we can push code that fast. Facebook, they push code over 1,000 times a day. Part of the reason that Facebook is so much faster is that they are leveraging completely commercial infrastructure, whereas these guys, they have to push to all sorts of different technical baselines. And so really the next step in us getting faster is to give them a more consistent technical baseline, and to make it a little bit easier for them to push code wherever it is and have that be consistent across all of the different mission areas. And that's something that it's just the way that our mission grew. And for a number of companies, that's the way too. And at some point you have to simplify. So we're at that point now. And then Iron Bank is our container repo. We're leveraging Kubernetes, and any companies that want to partner with us, we are containerizing the applications and services, bringing them into Iron Bank. And then because of the way that containerization and Kubernetes works, we're able to reasonably assure that particular product or service will work the same in a variety of different production environments. And so it actually helps our vendors to interact with all of our internal customers at a faster pace without having to reaccredit things for security. So that has been huge. But this is really kind of our big DevSecOps platform for the Department of Defense, and has really changed the way that we code together. So lots of open source technology, lots of inner source where people are collaborating across the department to share code. So it's been pretty cool and very empowering for our technical workforce. And then finally, I mentioned I would chat a little bit about Zero Trust. I think we're running out of time, but really Zero Trust is incredibly important for making sure that you can allow data to move seamlessly wherever you need to be able to access it anywhere. And in any company, in any government organization, you have to impose cost on your adversaries. If you have folks that are trying to attack your networks, and cybercrime, again, it's a big business, you have to be able to spend enough to make it really hard for them to hack you. And you want it to be expensive for them to hack you. And the more expensive and the harder it is, the fewer people that will try. And so, that really is kind of a business decision that you have to look at. But with Zero Trust, you are imposing greater cost. You're limiting the maneuverability of someone that comes into your system, while you're also allowing for more constructs where, for instance, in coalition sharing, there are a lot of rules about what governments share with each other. And sometimes because of those rules, we force each other to go to different systems to get different data. But Zero Trust, if you're really, really good about knowing what you need to know about your identity, if you're really, really good about knowing what you need to know about that data, you're not running to different systems to share that data. You're able to just go to one place and you're able to get access that you're supposed to get access to, and you're not getting access to the rest. And so I think that will be really helpful, especially for our international data sharing arrangements across some of our systems. So I'm going to skip ahead just very briefly for time. This is our maturity model for Zero Trust, and kind of how we're kind of visualizing the different things that we need to go, different levels of maturity in each of these areas. And finally, continuing to embrace different types of partners. So we do an annual Spark Tank competition. It's kind of like Shark Tank or Dragon's Den over there in the UK. We've had Mark Cuban and George Steinbrenner on there, some other tech luminaries, where our airmen are able to pitch ideas to them and to our senior Air Force leaders to compete for funding for those ideas, and to also just break some bureaucracy. And so bringing those ideas forward is huge. AI human teaming has been really huge in our mission. Partnering with the ethical hacking community has been great, because no matter how fast you write your playbook, someone out there is thinking even faster about how they can hack you. And so that community has been just, an incredible set of partners, and they've had a really fun time being able to hack us without going to jail. That's always a good thing. And also making some good money and helping shore up some systems. And finally, just rethinking the limits, and when something is wrong, just being really open that, this thing in my organization is wrong. You have to convey those things in a positive way, and you have to pick your forum. But but people should, hashtag be dissatisfied is what we say. If there's something wrong in your organization, speak up, empower your people to speak up, and give them the psychological safety so that they can do it. And that is probably one of the most important things that we can do. So within the Air Force, I have loved to talk about superhero analogies for a long time. And so our new Air Force Chief of Staff, General C.Q. Brown, I was so excited at our conference last year, when he talked about the movie Endgame and said, we need to get this right. We may only have one shot, no do-overs, accelerate, change, or lose. And that really resonates with me, because I think through all of the different superpowers that we have across all of our teams, and that's government teams where we're working together. That's commercial government partnerships. That's our university partnerships. Everyone has their part to play. Individual people have their part to play. And so I think as much as we can recognize those superpowers and bring them together and celebrate them, the stronger we are as a team. So we love to say one team, one fight. I appreciate you joining me and standing by for questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lauren. I really appreciate it. I think that was an extremely fascinating presentation, and it's been great to have you join us. I think we might have time just for one or two little questions. Something I wanted to touch on actually is during your presentation, you kind of mentioned culture a little bit, and kind of the culture of a workforce and what it means for people to be kind of connected. I was wondering, how important is culture of your people and your workforce when it comes to performing a successful digital transformation?
So I'll give you two answers, and they're going to sound contradictory, but they're really not intended to be. So a lot of people wave up culture. We got to change our culture. Our culture, is not one of innovation. I think that's largely a cop-out, quite frankly. Culture it will be the best or the worst of the things that you allow to happen in your organization. Like we have some really kludgy websites right now. So we're kind of looking at that like, oh man, maybe I as CIO need to look at the quality of the websites that I allow to come through. So there's what you allow and there's what you encourage. And that is really important. But I think too, I think a lot of times people really do want to change, but they need leadership to convey where we're headed, and they need to see exactly what's happening, and they need to see the little wins along the way. And so I think largely the culture changes as you have success in your digital journey and as you show value. And some folks might be scared for a moment, but I think largely it's really just a matter of, are they confident in where the organization is headed, and do they understand? And that comes down to communication. And so I'll say critically important, and also largely often used as a cop-out. So if someone says, oh, it's our culture, definitely maybe call them a little bit to account, and being specifically, what do they mean by that?
Awesome. And I think that is all we have time for, I'm afraid. But I want to extend a huge thank you to you from our audience and from us here at Tech, AI and Cyber Live. It's been extremely fascinating, and it's been great to have you join us. So thank you so much, Lauren, for your time.
All right. Thank you so much. Great to see you guys.
Thank you, Lauren. And thank you to everyone watching. I will catch you after this short break.